Hey guys, Game Hunter here, and we're back with some Wizard's Lair. It's Wizard's Lair. It's the game that I am slowly learning that isn't as exceptionally amazing as perhaps I had once thought. But hey, sometimes it just kind of, you gotta, ooh, that one looks fun. Just, because, let's pick a name. It's clearly for a woman. So anyway, like I was saying, there's a number of bits, especially the graphics-wise, just the sensory aesthetic of the game is pretty nice. And definitely, like the fact that the traps are kind of hard to spot, but of course have to be spotted nonetheless. It kind of makes it a bit of a challenge just to make sure that you're paying attention to the game. And I can agree with that, but there's other stuff in this game, perhaps most importantly, that wasn't actually one of the problems, but there are certainly some interesting, I wouldn't even call them interesting design choices because it almost feels like somewhat of the design choices weren't thought about as design choices yet. And so it's not so much a matter of making a poor decision as not realizing that there was the decision to be made. But I'll get to that in just a bit. As you can see, I don't have the music on yet. But so I'm going to go ahead and skip to the part where we get to, the good place. And then we can pick up this discussion once again. So back when I'm back. Alright, well, it's not an amazing victory. For instance, I didn't get the War Master stuff, and actually these enchant armors are worthless because I can't go past 5. It's one of those cases where it's maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Well, whatever. Let's get the music started, and great. I perhaps should have... double grade. Yes, I am completely not prepared for this. Oh, yes. That just happened. Yeah, I probably should have healed myself, because healing in this game takes such a long time to do. Oh, man. Yes, sir, Bob. I guess here, let's just go through it. Let's just go through the whole thing. Let's show... Oh, yes, right. The bats have a chance to miss you. We're going to just use that same dude. Alright, there we go. Well, rather, you have a chance to miss bats, not the other way around. But, it's kind of a where to begin sort of scenario. It's not that it's... I'm just going to speak without thought to courteousness, and I apologize if it starts sounding rash or brash or frank or blunt or anything like that, but I just feel like I should perhaps speak freely about such topics. Roguelikes are meant to be an intellectual challenge for the player. How that's accomplished is up to the developer, and how the developer wants the player to be challenged is, of course, completely their choice. Wow, this place ended up being small, didn't it? And I think Longsword's going to be better. So, yes, it was, by quite a bit. But the challenge, in this game, we've played it for quite a few parts at this point. So we have a decent sense of what the challenge is. And, for example, the way combat boils down is that you engage in an enemy in melee. And you pretty much attack each other until one or the other dies. And that's it. That's the entire set of combat. There's the fact that you have certain weapons and certain items and certain armors with you, but combat is decided the moment that you enter the same adjacent space as your opponent. And perhaps that was kind of true in Rogue. And obviously we have certain spells like Shuffle and Teleport, and maybe Chance that can affect things like location here. But it's not quite enough to make the dynamic interesting. And that's one of the biggest challenges of roguelikes, I would say, is the fact that once you engage in combat, there's little else to be done except either defeat your enemy or be defeated. And that's something that is a very important problem to solve because, well, either you're going to do that or you're going to make the preparation aspect the most interesting part, which can also be done. And certainly that's something that you can strive to achieve in your game is to try and make the player really think about what he's collecting and what he's applying to his inventory, what he prepares for, and that in itself is also a game, so that's perfectly fine. But you definitely want to be doing one or the other. Doing both can be perhaps insufferably complex, but done right can be an amazingly effective blend, and that's barely going to deal any damage, so who cares? So I guess what I'm saying here is that I don't believe that this game really achieves either of those. And the first bit is, of course, with combat. You either know that you're going to win the battle or you don't. And the only reason you wouldn't know is because you haven't memorized the stats of certain enemies and understood what the stats of everything do. And that's literally just a lack of complete information. But it's not the right kind of lack of complete information. Apparently falling down trapdoors hurts. I didn't realize that. That's an example case right there. And I guess it's not the worst thing, but it would require that preparation is interesting too. And quite frankly, it's not, because I mean, maybe it's because there's too few items in the game. Maybe it's because, let's see, what I'll get rid of. I guess I'll just eat you. It would be interesting if you had lots of different weapons that applied certain effects. For instance, if your level up, okay, that's fine. For instance, if leveling up wasn't about just giving you HP and maybe some other boosts here and there periodically, but rather that was the main source of your strength, and weapons affected how you dealt damage to certain types of enemies, then you might, for instance, consider yourself carrying more than one type of weapon around. That's not the case here, and it's just a matter of stat collecting, which you see in games like Diablo 3, and I mean, that can be interesting in some ways, and it can be completely uninteresting in other ways. Great. Sometimes I don't even feel like avoiding the traps just because of the time it takes. So, I guess the major flaw I see here is that the game is almost too simple. And in its simplicity becomes rather rote in terms of just figuring out, oh, I gotta do this, so I gotta do that. And if I don't find the right weapon, oh, I'm screwed because I literally did not find it by sheer chance. Roguelikes, good roguelikes will actually, avoid pure randomness and seek to make it pseudo-random by still giving you a variety of choices, but still within a particular difficulty range, or perhaps even discarding difficulty ranges entirely, and just making it a sense of maybe you have some monsters with easier AI to deal with, but nevertheless have stats that would perhaps kill you later on, even with good gear and things like that. And the game can be challenging through other methods by applying more enemies and making those enemies interact better in squads and things like that. But really in this game, the AI all do the same thing, The enemies do not have any different attacks whatsoever. Yeah, I just, again, didn't feel like it. And they all just will either gang... If they gang up on you, that's a matter of pure chance. If you fight them one-on-one, that's probably the way that you attempted to kill them in the first place, but was nevertheless pure chance also. Not to mention we just have the chance ability just, you know, right here. And that's what the game kind of boils down to, is just whether or not you get something good by the time you reach the snake's pit is entirely luck-based. And that's really not what you want a roguelike to be. It might look like that to an observer of roguelikes that has not really played them for a very long time, but ultimately, when you play a roguelike, you're looking for something that will stimulate your brain, something that will say, oh, I need to actually maybe spend half a minute truly thinking about what kind of equipment I want to have and how I want to approach this next enemy that's coming up, and what that enemy might do, what is my terrain that I'm looking at here. But in this game you don't really have any of that. You have a map that barely matters except for the fact that there's rooms which are useful in rooms which are not useful and corridors which are more useful in terms of combat. And I mean, I like kind of the structure of some of these, but then it just kind of gets a little out of hand with others. So, I mean, there's that much. I feel like I didn't really say much in all of that time, so yeah, that figures, right? So I guess let me talk about some specifics, and this time let me not even talk about the game's mechanics, but the game's UI. Now, I like a number of things about the UI, mostly just the style of it. It's very simple. It's darn fairly effective at just showing a simple environment and a simple layout for a player to understand quite simply. I use the word simple there, and simple is good for UI. You pretty much want as simple and elegant of an a UI, user interface, not artificial intelligence. You want as simple and elegant a UI for your given rule set as possible. That said, there are still a number of kind of smaller flaws here, and let me just list them off just almost explicitly. The first thing that comes to mind is the fact that movement is stuck on some kind of weird global timer such that you're always forced to follow that. If I wanted to move up and down, I could not, because it just won't let me. So it's a bit of a bother already. The second is the fact that everything has to be done kind of through the buttons of picking up and dropping stuff. Specifically, let's say right now if I wanted to drop something, I can't... Oh, well, kind of messed that up. Here. For example, if I wanted to drop something on an area that already has something, I'm not allowed to. Just flat out won't let me. It won't move it to an adjacent space or anything like that, which can be a bit problematic. And the biggest problem, of course, is when you have a full inventory, and that happens very often in a game that only gives you essentially 6 slots because 2 of them are constantly being used by your equipment. So, you know, that doesn't quite work out as well as you'd hope. And another dead end. Good times, right? Yeah, the procedural map generation could really use a major tweak. Just connecting everything together would be nice. If you see that the map has dead ends, tie them up before you plant the map down. Stuff like that. Yeah, I don't really care about trap reveals, but I do have a space left, so let's go ahead and make use of it anyway. And yeah, having a full inventory is a huge chore in this game, because it means whenever you want to check to see what an item does, the description of an item, you have to drop an item and pick it up and then take a look at it. And that's kind of a bit of a bother, really. And when you combine the two facts that you have this kind of global action timer not even just for movement, but also for commands in the inventory. Like, for instance, if I want to go, like, well, huh. So when was I having trouble with that? Because that's not the problem. Maybe... Man, I don't even know anymore. But, okay, well, scratch that. That was just me being stupid, I guess. So that's not really the issue. But the fact that it does take a while does kind of throw things off a bit. Especially when you have a full inventory and you want every single one of those items. I mean, if you had like a temporary item slot that allowed you to look at the item on the ground, that allowed you to use the item on the ground, that would be fantastic. That would be a huge improvement in just making things go a little bit faster, multiplied by the very many number of times that you're going to have to perform. So that's another case right there. Perhaps another fact is that you have kind of these stats here, but you don't really know exactly what they do. I mean, for instance, strength. My strength is 26. My damage is 27. What does strength have to do with damage or HP or anything? What does level have to do with... I mean, we know that level has to do with HP, because we always see that move when it goes up, but... You know, what does strength translate to? What does defense translate to? Is that direct damage reduction percentage? If so, why does enchanting armor only give 1%? It's kind of a measly improvement on such things. Not to mention that if you get to a point where you have like a 90% armor reduction, adding is far more useful than it is adding on something less important like one of those steel hauberks. And we just had a trapdoor that almost killed us. Wow, that was pretty nasty. Do I have something to heal that? No, I don't. I've found some potions, although they've only been minor as far as I remember, so it's a bit of a problem. And, okay, I can beat you, just barely. If I find one more enemy, I'm pretty much screwed. Unless I rest. Yeah, there it is. I think I went the wrong way. I need to stop going into places I haven't seen yet! Yeah, because that happens. And now the enemies will follow me to the edge of the earth, because that's just what happens. I guess I can use nothing, because I have death. So that killed one enemy. Oh, and there we go. Nice and dead. That wasn't me exactly being smart, although... Oh, and it won't show me that. But we've had a lot of deaths. Most of them nearly at or immediately after the snake pit. But yeah, I mean, I guess just... The game developer actually asked me to write down a bunch of stuff that I would consider calling to attention with regards to improving the game and suggestions to the effect that might bring about improvements. And I said I'd do that, and I will do that, and perhaps my thoughts will be more coherent there than they are in video form, because I am still trying to play the game, even if I'm not doing a very good job. But just some random improvements off the top of my head about the game mechanics themselves. Make every enemy special. Make it do different things. Have a look button so that you can always see what something is going to be. Or, if not a look button, then at least on here in the menu, just have something where you go look, and then you can look around. Something like that. Make it so that weapons are special. All of them are special. Make it so that you don't have different attack... that you don't have the same attack value for any given weapon, so that at least you always feel like you're finding an improvement when you get to something that's similar. I mean, I just picked up this flamberge, but I know it's exactly the same as the Guardian Mace and the Demon Slayer, as far as I can get into this game. Don't be afraid to include special elements of the game early on. It's very important to get people hooked in so that they're having a grand old time early on in the game. If you have basic enemies, you're going to have a basic game, and if your player gets stuck there constantly at the early game, they're just going to have a repetitive and boring time as a result. Having bats that, you know, have a chance for you to miss constantly is good, although maybe make it so that they're very weak in return, so that the problem is that the enemies can kind of ambush you while you're trying to kill this thing. And where is the stairs? Where are the stairs? Skeletons make it so that their corpses randomly are allowed to regenerate over time. Make it so that the eyeballs can see you better and therefore will attack you more often on sight. Something to that, or that they're always chasing you regardless of where you are. Make it so that the necromancers can revive other people. Make it so that the fire elementals and the frost elementals do various abilities with regards. Does this? Nope, it doesn't take me to the same place. Well, that's good to know. So, make it that they do special damage, and if you can get fire and frost armor, that improves them. Make it so that there's more fire and frost enemies, so that it makes sense to have such armors around. Have varying elements. Have nature, have earth, have wind, have lightning, have light and dark, have shadow and holy and evil and all good sorts of stuff. Things I don't really care about happening because I probably won't get far, and I doubt I'm gonna get so far as to keep this run going for much longer. I've already been spewing a lot of words constantly at this point. I'm starting to make my mouth a little just bits dry. Go figure. But yes, it's very important to have variety in this game so that when you get to an enemy, it's I have to do this, not I just run up to it and kill it. And maybe that will often happen with a lot of enemies, but you really want to make it so that each enemy feels unique. Unless, of course, maybe 30 levels down, you make a recolor of it. It's okay to have repetition as long as it doesn't happen at the same place at the same time. Yeah, look at the Guardian Mace. It's not even as good. Sorry. I guess Guardian Mace isn't even quite as good. But the glaive and the what was it? The Magic Bane are exactly the same as far as I can tell. And even if there is something different about them, there's absolutely no indication of it, and it's important to kind of describe these things. So, all those things, keeping that in mind. The Snake Men, maybe the Snake Men are smarter because they're humanoids and therefore have an intelligence that would be stronger than just the random beasts. Make it so that blobs split. I know these are kind of almost rudimentary given a roguelike, but just anything to add to the variety where, I gotta worry about this enemy, they do that. I gotta have X, Y, and Z prepared for this particular battle. Make it so that leveling up improves your inventory slots every 5 or 10 levels or something. Make the player really feel like they're getting a tangible bonus for their rewards. And HP is great and all, but the enemies are dealing more damage, so that just kind of scales. But if you give an entirely new dimension, for example, give them the ability to jump more than one space, to hop over enemies, to do a short teleport, to put a temporary wall in front of them, to any number of abilities. Maybe make it so that it's Blue Mage style, where you can absorb the abilities of your enemies. Make it so that, this game is called the Wizard's Lair after all. Maybe just over time you would gain abilities based on the surroundings and based on what you're using and based on what you're fighting. Things like that. I say this a lot, and it sounds silly, but your game needs to have a gimmick. And by you, I mean anyone. Anyone who makes a game. The game needs to have a gimmick. If it's not a radically new genre that completely shakes the foundation of how games are made, then your game needs to have some kind of gimmick. Because surely your genre has already been done. And if it has been done, then you need to make sure that your players have a reason to play special. So, yeah, I think that's really what I wanted to get into. And I apologize if this became ranty. I'll just get myself killed. But this has been Game Hunter playing and also talking about the Wizard's Lair. And I guess if the developer, because I'll get to the part where I'll eventually write a letter email thing about this sort of stuff. I'll be a lot more concrete and hopefully, intelligible. Wait, what's... I can't even think of properly right now. But if the developer makes a lot of updates to this game and I take a look at it and it's a lot better, I'll play it again. I'll play it a little bit. I don't know if I'll play a ton, but I will show that this game improves and it would be worth playing and buying. So, nevertheless, I suppose looking at all of the the few comments that we had, I'd say Getter probably deserves the key more than anyone because he stayed with it the whole time. So, congrats to you. I'll send you an email since I'm pretty sure I know it, or at least a PM. So, yeah, I guess we'll leave it at that. This has been Game Hunter once again speaking about playing the Wizard's Lair. Join me next time when we look at another game, another roguelike. Probably something that's been more matured, but I mean this is a good look because it's important to understand why some roguelikes are good. And this game shows that you do need special improvements in order to make your game stand out and be enjoyable and get 30 parts as opposed to 7 or 8. So yes, until then, and for those of you who reached the end of this, I salute you for listening that long. In any case, until then, keep playing those roguelikes, guys, and take care.